Alright, good afternoon everyone. My name is Yi Ting and I will be one of the three presenters today to talk about our project, Marina District Riverfront Public Access Plan. And to start with, I'd like to give you a brief introduction of the project and the team. So we are a team of 10 urban planning graduate students from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And as I mentioned, three of us are going to present today. I am going to talk about briefly about the history and the current situation in the Marina District. And we here have Harry and Allison here. They're going to talk more about our recommendations. So, our client, Jefferson East Inc., also known as JEI, is a collaborative catalyst for economic development among the 5 districts that comprise East Jefferson Corridor, as we can see here, and the Marina District is one of them. Actually, they came up with the name, the Marina District. So the purpose of this plan is to improve public access to community amenities via land and water and the experience of public space in Detroit's Marina District. And this plan recommends several strategies to achieve 2 goals. The first one is to extend and enhance existing land and water transportation networks in and around the Marina District. And the second one is to enliven the public's experience of the Marina District. So, where is Marina District and what's so special about it? Well, we're in the Marina District now. As we can see from this map, the Marina District is located along the Detroit River, about 5.5 miles east of downtown. And it extends from the Waterworks Park to Clear Point Street and from East Jefferson Avenue to Detroit River. And the whole area is about 755 acres, which is equivalent to 1.18 square miles. And it features a very unique mix of residential, industrial, commercial, and recreational uses. As we can see here, probably not that clearly, along the river, we have 5 private boat clubs and marinas, and also the only public boat launch, which is the St. Jude Boat Launch. And also along the river, there are 3 parks: Harris Gentry Park, Reed Memorial Park here, and the Engle Memorial Park over here. And also, of course, we have this beautiful Waterworks Park. And there are 2 fairly new residential developments in the Marina District. This one over here, Jefferson Village, and the Morgan Waterfront Estates. But the most prominent feature of the Marina District, as you can see from the map, is the DTE Connor Creek power plant by the river. Alright, so here's a little bit of history about the Marina District. In 1879, the Waterworks Park, which is the intake point of the Detroit's water system, opened. And then there's another picture of the beautiful Waterworks Park. And then the 7 sisters of the DTE plant opened in 1929. And later on, I'm trying to remember all this history, and I'm not very good with numbers, so bear with me here. So, and then later on in 1996, the 7 sisters was demolished, but the 2 brothers are still here, as we can see today. If you turn around, you can see that direction, that's the 2 brothers. However, the DTE plant was decommissioned in 2008. And the 2 residential development, as I mentioned earlier, started construction in the late 1990s and still building today. This is a very interesting picture of the Marina District. As we can see here, forefront, this is the Reed Memorial Park, and next to it we have single-family housing, and right behind it we see the 2 brothers of the DTE plant. So to start with our planning process, we first identify and analyze the existing plans and initiatives in and around Marina District. One of them was Marina District Vision. So our client JEI studied the Marina District in 2013 to understand the land use pattern and using community preferences to inform potential future development. So our plan builds upon it to incorporate with strategies to activate spaces and provide access to water that will serve as attractions to development. And we'll talk more about that with our recommendations. So moving on, we hosted 2 community engagement sessions on March 12th and March 15th with both residents and local businesses. I see some familiar faces today. Thank you so much for coming. And there are over 20 residents and 9 business representatives attending the meetings. And most of our recommendations you will hear today were informed by community input. So as another step in our planning efforts, we identified the assets in the Marina District, in and around the Marina District. So what are assets? The team defined assets as places or entities that will increase the value of the community and draw people down to the neighborhood. And here we pointed out just a few. First of all, of course, we have Detroit River, which is one of the biggest assets of the Marina District. And along the river, we have marinas and other riverfront assets. And also, we have the recreational assets, namely the 3 parks. And along the East Jefferson Avenue, there are commercial assets. Last but not least, the industrial assets. The DTE Connor Creek Power Plant and Chrysler Jefferson North Assembly Plant. This one is not in the Marina District, but we still see it as an asset because it provides large customer base for the assets within the Marina District with over 5,000 employees. So, next, we compared the assets with the current transportation networks, which reveals opportunities to enhance the connections within the Marina District. Overall, the Marina District is pretty accessible by motor vehicles, and regarding public transit, there are 2 bus routes, as we can see here, serve the Marina District. There are altogether over 15 stops along the East Jefferson Avenue, and that is the only bus routes that serve the whole district. And regarding the non-motorized transportation, this green line here is the Connor Creek Greenway. It borders the Marina District along East Jefferson Avenue to Clear Point Street and down to Mahar's Gentry Park. Another feature we have in the Marina District is the railroad extending from the Chrysler plant to the DTE plant. It's an underused one. So, based on our current situation analysis, we came up with strategies to achieve the 2 goals that I mentioned earlier. Now I'll hand it to Harry to talk about our transportation recommendations.
Thank you very much, E.T. So before I get started with our recommendations, I just want to mention that what I will present here and so will Allison later are just a few of the highlighted recommendations that we picked from our plan. A lot of others that address different kinds of needs from both our clients and community members will be included and explained in full detail in our final report, which will come available to all of you later this May. So, our first goal is to enhance connectivity. According to that, our recommendation is to improve non-motorized transportation connections. So currently, there's no direct path from East Jefferson Avenue down to the Detroit River, except for the Clear Point Street, which is on the very east end of the Marina District. However, our community members have shown great interest in improving walking and cycling infrastructures throughout the neighborhood to address these limited transportation connections. Therefore, one of our suggestions is to, one of our suggestions is to create bike lanes on both St. Jean Street and Fruit Street. We recommend to restripe St. Jean Street from East Jefferson Avenue down to the Detroit River waterfront, as well as Fruit Street from Harding Street to Clearpoint Street, to include a bike lane in either direction. And also, these designated bike lanes will be connected to the existing bike lanes on the Clearpoint Street, as well as those new protected bike lanes that will appear a short way on East Jefferson Avenue. We would also like to recommend to add a trail along the rail line to connect the neighborhood to the Detroit River. The trail could begin adjacent to the railroad on East Jefferson Avenue and run south along the west side of the railroad. The active Conrail Railroad, which is this section, and the abandoned railroad south of Fruit Street, which is this section, right into the Conner Creek Power Plant site. This trail will also extend the Riverfront Extension Greenway, which is proposed in the 2013 Marina District Vision Plan. Then our second recommendation is to improve motorized transportation connections. As we know, access to the riverfront depends highly on a convenient as well as well-maintained transportation network. We believe that the current situation of transportation in the Marina District could be improved by our suggestion to open the cul-de-sac on Old St. Jean Street here. So opening the cul-de-sac will provide a direct route for the trucks that serves the area. Here, we have a lot of industry areas that are located on the east side of the St. Jean Street. This will not only give a direct linkage between the industry businesses to the East Jefferson Avenue, but also divert heavy traffic from the neighborhood, from the residential area on the west side of the St. Jean Street, which will make the neighborhood more friendly to pedestrians and cyclists. Yeah, as you can see here is the old cul-de-sac on St. Jean Street, and this is what we proposed. Here comes our third recommendation, which is to develop water transportation connections. Currently, there's no public transportation along Detroit River in the Marina District. To access to water, which is a great asset both in the Marina Districts and the city, transportation via land could also be supplemented by transportation via water. In our community meetings, both our residents and the business owners have shown great support to implement a water taxi with a stop inside the Marina District, especially a route to the Belle Isle. So a 2015 plan has studied and assessed the feasibility of running a water taxi along the Detroit River and has proposed a route near the Marina District. Following up on that plan, we propose implementing a water taxi directly from Reed Memorial Park here in the Marina District to the Detroit Yacht Club on the Belle Isle, covering a distance of about half a mile to strengthen the transportation and tourism in the Marina District. There's also a neighborhood called Grosse Pointe neighborhood that down East Jefferson, just a few miles away. This is known as one of the wealthiest neighborhood in Detroit City. And also our proposed water taxi route will provide great convenience for them when traveling to the Belle Isle. After this water taxi has demonstrated success, we also recommend that the route can be extended and connected to other destinations along the Detroit River, such as those were proposed in the 2015 plan. Next, I'll just hand over to Allison. She'll talk about the other recommendations that we provide for our second goal.
Thanks, Harry. Great. So Harry talked about goal 1, enhancing transportation connections. I would like, here we have a picture of the water taxi in Belle Isle. I'd like to talk about our goal 2, which is enlivening the public experience in the Marina District. And by this we mean making it more enjoyable, more interesting, easier to navigate and explore the district, helping it become a destination for the city of Detroit. And so our first recommendation within this goal is addressing the issue that currently a lot of the assets in the Marina District are somewhat hidden. When we spoke with community members, some residents noted that they didn't know that there were public parks in the Marina District, for example. We also have about 18,000 vehicles per day traveling along East Jefferson Avenue, but it's difficult to see, you can't see the river from East Jefferson. And people traveling along that corridor might not know about all of the riverfront assets that exist. And so we see a great opportunity here because the Marina District is located between a major corridor and the Detroit River for greater visibility, for enhanced name recognition. And when we talked with business owners and community members, we heard interest in creating this brand identity for the Marina District. And so to support that, we recommend installing signs that help to brand the area and to help people navigate the area. And we've proposed 3 types of signs. Here we have some proposed locations along East Jefferson and at key intersections within the area. So the first type of signage, it's hard to see, but is gateway signage. And these are the signs that you put at the entrance points to neighborhoods to indicate to people that they've arrived at a destination. And so we see potential for gateway signs for the Marina District along East Jefferson Ave at some key entrance points. And this is an iconic example of an archway from Flint, Michigan, but gateway signage could take various forms, could be arches, posts, banners, and so there are many options there, but we think this might be a good idea for the Marina District. The second type of signs we propose on the left side here is wayfinding signage. And that's what we would install at key intersections that has names of destinations with arrows and potentially time or distance information to help people navigate. This is an example from the Wayne State area, and as we can see, it boards using cords to tie to existing posts, so that's one option. The third type of signage is informational signage, and here we have an example from another community in Michigan. And the Marina District has a really unique history and really interesting landmark features, both built and natural. And so informational signage can be used to inform people traveling through the district about that context and help make the experience of exploring the area more interesting. So moving on to our second recommendation. As Yi-Ting mentioned earlier, the Marina District has a really interesting mix of uses: industrial, residential, commercial, recreational. And to make it more pleasant and welcoming to explore the area, we recommend enhancing the curb appeal, especially at the interfaces of those uses. And there are various ways to do it, which we explore more in our plan. But one way is to use local art and to partner with local artists to install art at those interfaces. And this is an example from Grand Rapids, Michigan, of a mosaic that turns the side of a building into a visual landmark. We've identified a few locations in the Marina District that we think would be ideal for this. One being a blank wall on Edley Street behind the Jefferson Village Shopping Plaza. And in our conversations with people in the community, we heard some enthusiasm for sort of beautifying this area and sort of making it a little bit more vibrant. And so we pulled together an image, what we think that could look like if we painted the wall and installed some additional landscaping. And so another potential location is the fencing on Marquette Drive, or Marquette along Waterworks Park. So Waterworks is currently fenced with a mixture of wrought iron fencing and chain link fencing. And we propose pushing back that fencing to create more space for pedestrians to walk along the park and to decorate, especially the chain link fencing, with banners, Marina District banners or artwork that could help create that neighborhood identity and also to beautify that space. In the future, it's possible that the Marina District could develop some sort of fencing standard so there could be a consistent aesthetic throughout the neighborhood. And generally, throughout the district, we propose improving the streetscape, and that might mean adding landscaping or street furniture like benches, as well as expanding upon some of the existing trash pickup efforts that are in the area. We know that some of the business owners and JEI currently do have programs for picking up trash along major corridors, and we recommend expanding upon that to address any potential concerns with litter that might come with more visitors to the area. So our third recommendation in this goal of enlivening the public space is to promote the public parks as community assets. As I said earlier, it's not clear that some of the parks are open to the public. And in particular, we recommend opening up Reed Memorial Park. And Reed Memorial Park has its northern end, which is a fenced-in grassy area at the intersection of Froude and St. Jean, as well as the St. Jean Boat Launch to the south. The St. Jean Boat Launch is already a regional attraction, brings boaters from around the region because, as Yiting said, it's the only public boat launch in Detroit. And Reed Memorial Park recently had some major investment that make it potentially a tremendous asset for this area. And so, I skipped this slide. Our idea for promoting Reed Memorial Park and opening it up is to push back the fencing that's currently blocking off that grassy area to free up that space for community activities, and also to install signs that make it clear that these are public parks and open to the public, and to clarify hours of operation, steps for entry, to help us make these more available to the community. Okay, and so arrived at our last recommendation. Building off of these other proposals to install signage, which helps navigation and branding, enhancing curb appeal at the interfaces to help create sort of a more consistent aesthetic and enjoyable space, and promoting the public parks. We recommend creating opportunities for year-round activity throughout the district. And in particular, we've identified a few hubs that we think would be ideal for to generate more activity. It's hard to see in this inset map, but we have an existing commercial hub up on Jefferson with the shopping plaza there. We also have Reed Memorial Park as a potential hub, and as I'll discuss in a little bit, the Connor Creek Power Plant site. But first, to focus on Reed Memorial Park. Like I said, there's that northern part that's a large grassy area, and we can see a corner of it here. And we see this as being an ideal place for pop-up businesses and food trucks. And so residents expressed interest in having more commercial activity in the area. And we heard ideas about coffee stands and bait shops. And so this is potentially a place for pop-up markets that could host stands by new entrepreneurs or established businesses that would like a satellite location, more publicity, more publicity, or a stop for food trucks that are already operating in Detroit. We also see the southern portion, the St. Jean Boat Launch area, as being, it's already an attraction, but it being an ideal home base for water education activities for children. As we heard from the engineering groups earlier, the Outdoor Adventure Centers is working to connect students in Detroit to their programming and designing bus routes to optimize that. And so St. Jean Boat Launch could be a stop on those routes at some point, or it could be a base for field trips for the Outdoor Adventure Center. In addition, it's a great location for fishing, for viewing the river. People already take their lunches down to enjoy the views of the river while they eat, and potentially for community events that could help with branding, such as a fish fest at the kickoff of the fishing and boating season. And so, lastly, we recommend the DTE Connor Creek power plant site as a hub of activity in the future. And currently it's unknown what the future of the site is, but we see it as it's an iconic visual landmark in the Marina District, the Two Brothers, and it can be seen from outside the district. And it could be a landmark destination for people traveling to the Marina District. So we recommend repurposing that site with public access. And we've been working with some architecture students at the University of Michigan, and they've been generating ideas for this and other closed power plant sites and developing some prototypes and for what this might look like. And so they're not able to present today, so I'd like to present some of their work now. Oh, this is an idea of what it might look like to have pop-up markets in the northern part of Reed Memorial Park. These are some examples from Austin, Texas, with food trucks and benches, picnic tables. And so the architecture students have been working in a studio that started a bit after MEC, but is very relevant to our planning area, called Power Prologue. And they're looking at ways to adaptively reuse closed power plants. And so the studio is motivated by the fact that 200 coal-fired power plants have been closed in the last 30 years in the US. And that's 40% of the total coal-fired power plants in the country. And so this is positive news, but it engages this question of what will happen next with these sites. And so the studio is thinking of ways that might be alternative to more traditional or conventional demolition and brownfield creation to adaptively repurpose these sites, and is using the Connor Creek site as a case study in developing prototypes for 9 other locations that will be closing in the near term by 2020 in Michigan. And the studio is focusing on ideas that will generate social, ecological, and environmental and economic benefits for the local and regional community, and is thinking of ideas ranging from energy generation to parks to jobs. So we'll explore some of those in a bit. But first, they've been researching precedents both in the US and internationally. This is an example of a former shipbuilding site in North Amsterdam that's been repurposed and now houses incubator spaces that provide sort of a circular economy with employment for residents, and it's also incorporating remediation strategies. So with that said, the studio has focused on 4 types of adaptive reuse. The first being ecological recovery, which, and these photos show the use of landscape to help remediate. The second category is creative enterprise, and here we have depictions of large-scale art production and display within the existing plant structure. The third is energy and research, and if you can see in the corner here, we have fitness-based recreation functions combined with renewable energy generation in a really innovative combination of activities. And lastly, the fourth category of types of reuse is waterborne destination. And here we have the idea that water-based recreation activities can make use of the site within the facility as well as the access to the river. And so, as I said before, while it's uncertain what the future of the Connor Creek plant site is, we recommend that it be repurposed with public use, and we see great potential for it to be a landmark destination within the Marina District. And the architect's ideas have really complemented that recommendation and provided some interesting food for thought. So with that, we conclude our recommendations for the Marina District. Just to recap, we had 2 goals. The first being to enhance the transportation connections, both within and around the area, and the second being to enliven the space. And here we have a summary of our recommendations, which we're happy to discuss further. And our report will have much more detail about implementation timeline, cost, partners, that kind of thing. And we would like to thank, one quick note is that all of our recommendations are standalone, and we see them as being quite implementable. And we would like to thank everyone who has helped us develop this plan by providing feedback and ideas from residents to business owners, JEI, DTE, other individuals who have done interviews with us. And now I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you. Actually, first I'll just have our team come up so we can all field the questions. A lot of
Me?
Yes, thank you.
So I just wanted to point out that historically, Waterworks Park was open to the public. And in fact, many years ago, the city had stated that it was their intention to open Waterworks Park again. I don't know if you guys knew about that or made any effort to engage the city in using that as a goal, but certainly I think bookending this marina district with the power plant that might be open to the public and Waterworks Park, which actually fronts onto Jefferson and would serve as a perfect advertisement for this whole effort, seems like a very worthwhile goal.
Thank you. I can start and then anyone else can jump in. That history is really interesting, and we've thought about some of the potential and some of the challenges related to opening that up. We know that there are concerns about security and that some systems, expensive systems, have recently been put in place. But in the near term, our proposal is to push back the fence to create more public space around the park. And in the long term, sort of re-envisioning what that space might look like when the systems, are being updated and things like that. I don't know if anyone else wants to add on to that.
So yeah, the one other addition we had was based on other plan recommendations, incorporating from the Marina District's 2013 vision plan is this trail extension that would go along the waterfront and then come back up to Jefferson that way.
Well, somewhat continuing that same discussion, there have been some thoughts by some of some connectivity to the riverfront walkway and expanding the ability to have walking or bike or some access to continue that up through the river. And obviously there's some challenges with the marinas and other things, but did you look at that at all, any connectivity to the riverfront that is currently at Belle Isle?
Does someone who worked on the transportation connections want to speak to this?
I can take that one as well. So the current activity right now with the waterfront has kind of been planned up to a certain point along the waterfront, and so in our engagement with some of the stakeholders involved in that planning of that waterfront space right now, was that at this current point in time, extending it this far down the river would not be a recommendation that is necessarily one that can have a lot of backing at this point in time, but it's definitely one that kind of collectively we all would like to see in the future. I think it's a matter of phasing and when financial resources can be dedicated to that work. So in other words, that work is kind of moving along the riverfront. It's making its way in this direction. But we didn't include that at this time because of that.
I saw some of the positive aspects for opening Reed Memorial Park and maybe more activity with St. Pete and Boat Launch. Could you come up with any of the negative aspects of having more traffic, litter, safety concerns for the residents in that area? Did you come up with anything like that?
Well, we do acknowledge that there are implications for opening up those parks. There are some there's reason for having the fencing. It adds some amount of value for security. But we had an interesting conversation with JEI talking about, rather than removing the fencing, pushing it back so we maintain some of that security. Also, there's been an increase in investment in video surveillance and also some patrols by Department of Homeland Security. So that's really added a greater level of security to this area. We recognize the concern about litter and think that the trash pickup program could be really helpful at addressing that. So we do try to identify some of those challenges and propose potential solutions. Thank you.
So you mentioned that your implementation or the goals were standalone. So is that to say you recommend those being implemented completely independently, or are there benefits to undertaking multiple projects at once? And then, to what she said in terms of disruption for, in the construction and the increased traffic, especially during the construction stage, So what would be your plan of action in terms of that, or is that something you haven't explored yet because this is kind of an initial recommendation?
So to that regard, the way that we've structured our recommendations in the plan is giving them approximations of what time period would be associated with each independent recommendation, and then also the approximate cost range in there as well, so that it can be determined kind of the intensity of each one in that regard. And then in the fact that they're independent is to say that we've also identified the different players that would be involved in moving each recommendation forward, so that they can decide themselves at which point it would be appropriate to move those forward. We didn't want to get to the level of prescription to say it has to go in a certain order, because certainly there's different funding initiatives that could support those going in a different order at that time.
When outside of your recommendations, looking at this as a marina district and maybe in some of your background research in this, did you look at kind of or think about benchmarking versus other marina districts and what this community has, what it doesn't have, and what works in other places that could be thought of in this marina district?
I can take a stab. Yeah. We definitely identified some unique features in this marina district that we're trying to highlight through our proposals. And a lot of our proposals are informed by what's worked in other places, not just marina districts, but other arts and culture districts and downtown districts, things like that. So a lot of the signage recommendations come from that. Some of the public artwork, transportation connections are absolutely involved in that too. So we also read a lot of example riverfront public access plans that helped us sort of create a foundation for this project. And so while we didn't necessarily do case studies of other marina districts specifically, we pulled ideas from a lot of different successful planning projects. Anyone else want to add to that?
So we realized Marina District is really special, not like from the history and the current condition, it is a mix of everything. And another thing that we identified through our public engagement is that the enthusiasm within the Marina District. That's how we see all the recommendations are visible. We see how passionate people are to enhance the Marina District, to make it better. So that's one really unique feature as well.
Well, I grew up here, so I'm part of the history of this area. And I thought it was interesting that you showed the Earlwood Monument because as a kid I played, I went to school across the street, and that was where we went to lunch. And I once lost a bet with a classmate, so I had to climb that thing. And I paid for it with my parents very dearly. Because I was kind of curious, why did you stop at Waterworks Park and not go over to Henderson or Owen and just move forward to the west or downstream?
Were you going to? Oh, well, so I want to answer all the questions. Feel free to jump in at any point. But partly our study area was defined by sort of the existing definition of the district and wanting to build upon planning work that had been done in the past. And so the 2013 Marina District Plan had these boundaries. And so we maintain consistency with that. That might be the simple answer. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
Well, the 2013 actually stops at Marquette and does not include Waterworks. We decided to include Waterworks because we knew it was an asset for this area. So we extended just a little bit beyond just to include that asset. So, but yes, basically that's how we determined our study area, was by those boundaries that were already set.
Are there any plans to move it, to redefine? You said it was set in 2013. Has there been talk about extending it? Because you do have Henderson Park, which used to be called Memorial Park, but it's got the marina there, Owen Park, and the farther down you go, it's almost to Belle Isle where, so I'm just thinking, I don't know, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Did you want to add to that?
So the Marina District, Erica, looks like
I think Jefferson East, if they were here, would say that's one of their other, bring up their map for their districts. They would consider the other side of Waterworks as part of the village's neighborhood. So they've done some planning for each of their 5 districts. And this is one that they've given kind of less attention to. So that was one of the reasons for the choice of this district as part of this project.
So, yeah,
Well, you can't really see it from here.
Yeah. This is more an animation from their website, but yeah, so what I was going to say, thank you very much for that, Eric, is that in working with JEI, we were working off of the way that they've kind of, I guess, regionalized this area alongside Jefferson Avenue. So this is the area that's been determined that essentially the vision plan from 2013 is what's kind of the original codifier of the Marina District as the Marina District. And it really does revolve around the number of marinas and yacht clubs that are all based along this section of the shoreline.
Also, just to add to that, if you look at the 2 residential neighborhoods within the Marina District, their characteristics are very different from the neighborhoods in the surrounding areas. So we thought that keeping with these existing boundaries would be a good way to just study what's going on in here.
A little bit of trivia though, the Whittier Hotel that's right there by Memorial Park, the Beatles stayed there.
So we shouldn't be.
In 1965, they came to Olympia, and that was a hotel at the time.
They never heard of the Olympia.
They talked about it as business.
I know about it. That's been a story in this neighborhood for a long time.
Cool.
I had a question about, one of the images showed a multimodal bridge connecting Maharaj Gentry Park to the rail trail. Could you talk a little bit about what that bridge would look like?
Yeah.
What modes are you talking about?
So that's, and this idea here is building off of recommendations of that vision plan of, they had a trail that kind of went this whole area, and so we've kind of, it is essentially a connected network of non-motorized access, but we've distinguished it by these are bike lanes that run along Clarepoint and along Frood, and then this is a shared use path, so shared use path being approximately 10 to 12 feet wide and can accommodate both pedestrians and bikers as well. So that's what kind of the I guess extension would be. That bridge would be a shared use non-motorized path. And I guess an additional point on that too is we liked that this was something that was in the 2013 plan that we wanted to continue with our non-motorized connections, primarily because of the asset of Conner Creek right here and the CSO right here. Confined sewage overflow is a key part of our water system, and it's something that a lot of us aren't really aware of where that is. And so we thought that would be a cool asset of that would be is that not only is this your way to bike over to the park or to whatever is the new adapted reuse of the Conner Creek power plant, but it's also a way to get more exposure to how our water systems work.
So great segue into Conner Creek. Y'all mentioned that in kind of the redevelopment, there's those 4 domains: ecology, recovery, creative enterprise, energy research, and waterborne recreation, and potentially as it being an incubator for other things. Is it necessarily in this proposal that it maintain that ability to be an incubator or a perpetual incubator for the other sites that pop up around the state?
I was going to say we didn't really go too much in depth
of the Conner Creek plan in our proposal, but we did recommend that it be used for public use because that's what community members desired. If it is redeveloped, of course. Do you want to add?
Well, I guess to say to that too is because that was that's as far as our plan went.
Right.
Because of like with the architects developing those 4 different types around it, we certainly didn't want to dive too deep into kind of conflicting with what recommendations that they were making. So, yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned was connectivity to the riverfront part of the discussion. You mentioned a water taxi between some point on the shoreline and the island and then the protected bike lanes. Can you tell us more about what your thoughts are on there, and is that a potential tool or tools to use to connect? Because I see that as being a huge issue with the development of the riverfront, is getting from the riverfront to the east or west is a huge challenge because of what's in the way. Can you tell us more about your thoughts on the water taxis and protected bike lanes, things like that?
Are you saying to, like more detail on how that does develop more connectivity?
How you would utilize them, and was that part of your thought? You showed a picture of a water taxi for a second. That was kind of cool. I don't know that much about them. Just
I can talk a little bit about our
There you go.
vision about the water taxi.
Yeah.
So this was building off of course, a pre-existing plan of proposing a water taxi along the riverfront, but that would have been west of our study area. So we proposed having a water taxi like right in the Marine District, right at St. Jean Boat Launch, to the yacht club because of all of the activity that happens at the St. Jean Boat Launch and a lot of the fishing attractions, and seeing that as a destination of big attractions and potential pop-ups. A water taxi could serve as a back and forth between Belle Isle and the Marina District and any events that are going on, like the Grand Prix, and maybe there's a big event happening and there could be pop-ups on the other side in the Marina District during that event, so there could be a way to go back and forth and like kind of get people to businesses and whatever pop-ups that are happening, and then back to the Grand Prix or just other events. And there might be a pre-existing water taxi that we could use. There's rumor that there is a boat somewhere that but we haven't dug too deep into that yet because it's hard to communicate with some people. But yeah, and then also given that like this area is where like current is like least of an issue, we could have a smaller water taxi just going back and forth to be less expensive. And it would cut the time getting to Belle Isle almost in half from like if you wanted to take the other route. So that would also be something to consider.
And in the past, there has been a ferry system,
Yeah.
and so there's precedent for this type of project. And there was a lot of enthusiasm, both with the people that we talked with from the Marina District, but also people that are working in Detroit more broadly. And we'd love to use the AHP process to figure out the right size boat for the right fare.
I just find that water taxi concept intriguing. Sometimes getting there's having fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got time for one more question.
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to quickly follow up. Did you connect with those who are working on the water taxi kind of further down? And kind of, I guess, maybe what's the outcome of that conversation? If you connected with them regarding this.
Yeah, sure. So those were the folks, Freshwater Transit was the name of the company that was contracted by the Riverfront Conservancy. And we did get in touch with them. And so there, if we could bump back to the map. Oh, cool. I think we had a map that had all of Belle Isle, right? Okay. Well, so down here, I used to using this guy. So this is Belle Isle, and then over here is where the Belle Isle Casino is, and that was actually the primary destination of that water taxi plan is going from downtown Detroit around to the south side of Belle Isle and ending up at the Belle Isle Casino. And so our addition to that, our complement to that is coming from the north side of Belle Isle, coming from the Marina District and going to the yacht club over here in the north end, kind of gives two entry points to Belle Isle, in addition to the motor bridge at the center. So an important key, I guess, caveat to that though is, so with that plan that has already been generated is going on the south side of the island where the dredging of the river this is a much higher current than is running on this north side of the river. And so that's a key piece that we didn't dive into too much of, I guess would that be the physics or how exactly that influences the travel time or the kind of boat and how expensive that gets there. But that is a known concern with that plan is this being the shipping pathway and the faster current presents a challenge with that. And over here, that is not as much of a concern because it hasn't been dredged to that depth.
Gotta put your engineers on that.
What about I don't know if you discussed with them, the level of kind of what it would take for them to consider relocation in terms of who's your audience, how much traffic, kind of, did you engage with them at all about that?
I think there's a lot of interest in exploring this idea further. We've had some really interesting conversations with people who are excited about this idea, and I think if it were something that we would like to pursue, we would flush it out more. And so I think that would be an exciting phase 2 of this planning project.
I don't want to stop the conversation, and I'm not. I'm just putting it on pause for 2 minutes. It's 4 o'clock, and Sinbad's is going to open this room on up. So we have a room downstairs, and I really encourage you to talk to the students one-on-one, especially if you can't read maps at that scale. And I'm hoping we can get the architecture project slide up here so you can take a closer look. Just an FYI, Dan's class presentation is on the 25th if you want to talk to him some more about that. We have a contact information slide at the very end so that when we talk about reports and such, just get a hold of me. I'll make sure you get a copy. I want to thank Sinbad's for giving us a nice rate. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to give a big thank you to Cormac over there for being a big boy and being quiet during our whole presentation. And we're working for him. And I want to thank the students. It's been a full semester, a lot of bumps and changes and everything, and that's how life is. But they kept going forward, and you can close your eyes and you can imagine taking a bike down the Connor Creek Greenway and getting on a boat and going to Hart Plaza and meeting students who took a bus there that wouldn't otherwise exist. And I think that's what putting all these pieces together makes a better city, and we want to thank them for doing a good job. So see you downstairs. Thank you.